Here's our presentation on India. We're going to talk a little bit about the geography and how it's affected the country. First up is a map. Just want you to be able to locate India on a map. Here's the United States, and here's about where I am in Pennsylvania. And here's India, all the way across. Next up is a little picture of the flag. It shows that it's three colors, a deep saffron color, a white, and an Indian green. In the center of it is a 24-spoke wheel that is navy blue in color. Now we're going to get into the physical geography that makes up India. So the location. We talked a little bit about the location. It's a country in South Asia that lies entirely on the Indian plate and the northern portion on the Indo-Australian plate. So it shows us here where all the plates are on the map, and it also shows us how much India takes up. The continent size, it's the seventh largest country in the world, with a total land area of 1,269,219 square miles. It actually shows us the picture to the right, how much of the United States that it actually takes up. It's pretty neat. The population of India. Today, India is very diverse. It has more than 1.2 billion people, second most populated nation after China. So it shows us where most people are actually located. There's bodies of water. India is surrounded on two sides by different bodies of water. It has the Indian Ocean, the Bay of Bengal, and the Arabian Sea. These bodies of water account for over 7,000 kilometers of coastline. The mountains and the desert also play a huge part in India. On the northern part of India are the ever so popular Himalayan mountains. The western border, where Pakistan lies, has a plain and also has the Thar Desert. There's also some hills in the northeast part, and deeply forested mountainous regions separate India from Bangladesh. So it's really protected, pretty good on all sides. Some land use. Here's a few pictures of different things that the land can be used for. There's some places that the land can't be used, which is shown in the picture with all of the water. It's also used for many agricultural land. There also are some very deep forest lands that have been hard for them also to be able to use. The next talks about climate and some water. So I have some pretty neat pictures on this one. It tells us that there's 6 major climate subtypes, so you can tell kind of from the pictures which ones they are. The top one is the arid desert. Also in the north there are some glaciers and some very humid tropical regions, almost like a rainforest in the southwest. And there's also obviously some island territories being surrounded by water. There's 4 seasons in India. There's a winter season, a summer season, a monsoon season, and the post-monsoon season. Next up is some temperatures across India. As you can tell from the map, the red, orange, and the yellow are the highest temperatures, and the blue and green are the lowest. So the northern part of India is where most of the lower temperatures, where the glaciers are found, and the southern part of India is where it's red and very hot in temperature. Next up is some cultural and some human geography. Very important for India is their language. India has 28 states and 7 territories. There's no official language in India. In fact, it's actually a misconception. People believe that most of the people speak Hindi in there, but they don't. 59% of the residents speak something other than Hindi. Here's a few examples of some written language examples over onto the left-hand side here that you can see. Next up is religion. India is identified as the birthplace of Hinduism and Buddhism, the third and fourth largest religion. About 70% of the population identifies as being a Hindu, and about 15% are Muslim, making it one of the largest Islamic nations in the world. Next up is the economy. India has the sixth largest service of exporter in the world. It imported a total of $616.7 billion worth of merchandise and services. Next up are some exports. This gives us a great visual of what the exports actually are. Obviously, the largest export are across the bottom here. We have some textiles, which are good. Fabric and textiles make up 7%. We have some grains, the rice, different stuff like that makes up a good percentage. Machinery made up 5%. Another one that I found to be pretty neat was the gems. There's actually no picture for that one, but it makes up gems and jewelry make up 13%, and pharmaceuticals make up 5%. The government of India. The government governs it as per the Constitution of India. So the official name of the government is the Union Government of India. The Indian government is democratic in nature. So much like the United States, they have a legislative, an executive, and a judiciary branch. Here's some information about the traditional clothing in India. Indian clothing is closely identified with the colorful silk saris worn by many of the country's women. They are very colorful. The traditional clothing for men is a piece of cloth that's often tied around the waist or their legs, which you can see in the bottom picture. The men also wear a kurta, or a loose shirt that is worn that hangs to be about knee length. Indian food. Indian cuisine is influenced by many other countries. It is known for its large assortment of dishes and the use of herbs and spices. Wheat and rice are very important in the diet. 20 to 40% of India's population is actually vegetarian. Much of the Indian food is always served with some kind of a piece of bread or a roll. Instead of utensils, they use this bread to actually eat with. Here's some of the cultural history. India's culture is among the world's oldest. They believe that civilization began about 4,500 years ago. Some say it's the first and the supreme culture in the world. Mathematics and medicine. India plays a huge role in mathematics and medicine. Actually, the numeral system common today came from India. And the idea that there was a zero came from India. The place value system, which enables us to write numbers no matter how large, but only using 10 symbols, came from India. And as far as medicine goes, medicine was developed in early India. It was a system of medicine that depended on human intervention rather than superhuman. It consisted of the use of many herbs, and actually 600 drugs were noted, and their use to treat specific diseases were finally recommended. So instead of using the same drug to treat numerous things, this is when they began actually treating certain diseases with certain kinds of herbs and drugs. The architecture. The architecture is one of the most amazing things about India. It is undoubtedly beautiful. Both the Buddhists and the Hindu greatly influenced the architecture in many different kinds of ways. As you can see to the pictures to the left or to the right, the Buddhists and the Hindu both had many stoneworks, but they were often built in different kinds of ways. The most famous of the architecture is the Taj Mahal. It's a white marble mausoleum in Agra, India. Is one of India's top tourist attractions. It's commonly referred to as the Jewel of the India. At the end of this presentation, I'm going to tell you a little story about the Taj Mahal. These are some fun facts about India. First up is the holidays and some celebrations. They have a Republic Day, which is celebrated on January 26th. They have Independence Day, which is August 15th. They also have a 5-day festival known as the Festival of Lights. And to the right of the presentation here, that's a picture of the Festival of Lights. So what they do is they light the inner lights and they're supposed to protect them from the spiritual darkness. They also have the Festival of Color, which is called the Festival of Love. It's very popular in the springtime. There's many wildlife in India. India is home to a number of rare and threatened animal species. The wildlife management in the country is essential to preserve these species. It has the Bengal tiger, the Indian lion, and the Asian elephant, just to name a few of them. India is home to about 60 to 70% of the world's biodiversity. Here's my little love story, a famous love story that came out of India. It's a story about a famous couple. They were a royal couple. They shared a loving marriage until one day the wife died as she was giving birth to her 14th child. Her husband was devastated by her death. As she was on her deathbed, she asked him to please build her some place that he could visit her often. So he promised her that he would never remarry and he would build her the richest grave ever. So shortly afterwards, he built a building called the Taj Mahal. This is where it became known for. After completing it, he actually got ill and was overthrown by his eldest son. He spent the rest of his life in house arrest and is buried in the Taj Mahal next to his wife. So that's it. What do you remember? Here's some review questions we can talk about. What's one animal from India? Can you name me an export product? India's population is second to only what country? The seasonal rains are called. Can you remember one use of land for the continent of India? India's landmass would cover about how much of the US? Can you give me an example of an Indian holiday? Their major religion was? And name something that the Indian culture is famous for. The last one says what food or ingredient is a big part of Indian food. So I hope you can answer a few of those questions, and I hope you've learned a little bit today. Thanks.